Let's get more on this now from David Otto, who joins me from Yaoundé, Cameroon. He is the director at the Geneva Centre for Africa Security and Strategic Studies. David, why are we seeing China investing so heavily in Africa? What are its main strategic interests on the continent?
Rachel, I think just like many other countries, the US, the European Union, perhaps the United Kingdom, and all other countries that are kind of investing in Africa. I think this is more or less a geopolitical strategy. I mean, repositioning itself. China wants to make sure that it is a contender. This is more or less a scramble for Africa 2.0, whereby the European states, the Western states, are being challenged by countries like China, like countries like Russia, and so many other countries that are interested in the natural resources that Africa has. We have to be very clear, it's always been natural resources. Everyone wants to get cheap natural resources from Africa. The other economic developments and, in terms of geopolitical, diplomatic relations, they all boil down to, winning a space in the natural resource scramble. And that is what China is interested in. It cannot be as powerful as it is, if it doesn't have a source for its natural resources, but also a market, which Africa provides with 54 countries.
So what do you see happening in Africa as China continues to push its investments in the region? Is this quest for dominance pushing out the Western influence that we saw for so long?
Yes, I think this is a game of geopolitics is a game of options. The better alternative wins. So Africa must open its eyes in terms of how it balances or how it benefits, from this scramble, rather than as your colleague said in the analysis, rather than Africa being the grass that suffers when the elephants fight. I think what we should be looking at here is African countries repositioning themselves and saying, how do we benefit from these, so-called scramble 2.0, whereby, the powerful countries are repositioning themselves to make sure that they can get the best out of Africa. How does Africa benefit more from this? And I think, that should be the focus, because, of course, there are so many contenders, that are effectively scrambling to have an upper hand. The United States, the EU, as you rightly mentioned, countries like Turkey are also involved in Africa. You've got countries like the United Kingdom. So it's more or less, a case of Africa positioning itself in a way that it can have the most benefit out of this struggle.
What about the United States? Under President Obama, we saw a pivot toward Africa, but under President Trump, a pivot away. And now with President Biden, it seems like he's been distracted by other issues and hasn't really put much of an emphasis on Africa. What does the U.S. stand to lose if it does lose out to China in Africa?
Massively. I mean, if the U.S. loses out to China, but also not just China, but countries like Russia that are very much involved, in the defense and security space, in areas like Central African Republic, Mozambique, in the central part of Africa. I think the U.S. has a very strong competition in this region. But of course, as you rightly mentioned, the United States is distracted hugely by the ongoing crisis or the war between Russia and Ukraine. Therefore, they've got to be able to balance their position. Also, each of these countries are, just coming back from the impact of COVID-19, which is still there. So, I think China seems to have a much more upper hand, because, of course, it is ready to invest massively in infrastructure. It is also getting involved in the defense space, which previously it wasn't interested in. So you can see China, crumbling. You can see China marching towards, the area of involving itself in internal affairs, by presenting itself as an option to peace and negotiation and defense space. So it's a big, challenge, for the West. But again, the benefit has to come from the African countries. They have to know what works best for them and what is their interest.
All right, we'll leave it there. David Otto joining us from Yaoundé, Cameroon. Thank you, David.